But no, thanks very much for the invite, everybody. And hopefully, I'll go through some pictures of mine here, explain. Hopefully, I'm not going over some stuff that you've heard before, but it will be a wee bit of history and things like that, and where I came from and how it's evolved for me over time. And the second part, what I'm hoping to do then is to connect my iPhone up and then show you basically how I would work a couple of pictures to create something that probably, a bit like using Photoshop, but you're using the iPhone. Now, although I say about iPhone, a lot of these things are you can do on your Android phones and everything else. So you don't actually have to worry too much about it. I stick with iPhone because there's an awful lot of apps that I have, and sometimes I do a teaching course in Belfast, and I know what I'm talking about on the iPhone, and I had to find equivalents on Android. A lot of them are similar, but there's just some you can't get, and some that I just love. So, but you'll hear a wee bit about those as we go on. So, what I'm going to do anyway, I'm going to share my screen, and then we'll go from there. Right. Okay. Um, okay. Everybody see that? Okay.
Yeah.
Good.
Yep.
Right. As I say, it's iPhone mobile photography, and so we'll just go through it. What a long time ago, I was looking up the figures actually when I first started. Um, I, I started using my phone to take photographs. And actually, where is it here? 2010. That's the previous version. That's the minus iPhone 1. Um, but there was I joined at iPhone 4, and that was in 2010. And the first time I started using it seriously, I went off to Italy with a crowd of my mates. Some John Maskelly and a few others. Um, and we started going to Italy. But the man that introduced me, first of all, to it was a man right in the middle there with his wife, Dan Burkholder. And he came over to Northern Ireland, though, quite a few years ago. This is a workshop he did, and it was all to do with platinum palladium printing. And this is where our club rooms are. We literally walk out the door, and that's where we are in Belfast Lock. And so we got the photograph there, but it was Dan that introduced me to iPhone thing. He was working, I think, with an iPhone 3, and he was producing all these pictures. And I thought, in those days there are a lot of textures and everything else because the lenses were really poor. And so he was disguising a lot of the things with a lot of textures, but they're beautiful. They were really, really good. So I said to him, sent him an email, and I said, Dan, what are you doing with all these wonderful pictures? And his reply was, selling them, Gerry. So once I heard that, I thought, now maybe there's something in this. So I decided to start taking, and here's me in Italy. Now I'm hedging my bets here, and this is my Nikon, but sitting on top of it there, you can see my iPhone 4. I made a wee bracket for it so I could fit the iPhone on. So this is me out more or less the first day, taking photographs and everything else. And we're doing different things. So I was taking on the Nikon and then taking on the iPhone. And I was using an awful lot of different apps, Snapseed and various things like that. Oh, sorry, not Snapseed, sorry. Um, what was it there, me? Just show you, brain dead already. We're Hipstamatic. I was using Hipstamatic a lot to try and get the pictures. So now, one early morning, got up very early. This is taking on the Nikon, and the boys had all gone off. They left me behind. I won't go into the story, but let's put it like I said. Just decided to leave me in the hotel because I couldn't hear them all getting up and going. So they thought I wanted to sleep on, so I was left. Anyway, I got up early, and from our hotel, we're in a wee place called Pienza in Tuscany, and there was a looking over the valley, and the farmer was out very early in the morning gathering up all the hay and things like that. So I was using the long zoom, took photographs there, another one again, and I thought that this was lovely. So I was waiting to hear from the boys when they were coming back, but I hadn't heard anything. So I took my phone out and thought, looked at it, no phone messages. So I went and started taking a couple of photographs on the phone. And this again is using one of the Hipstamatic apps, and took that one, and I took that one, and I thought, oh, they look quite good, because I've had no processing to do. I don't have to do anything. All I've got there are the images pretty well finished. Now, if anybody's used Hipstamatic, there are so many combinations of lenses, which is really filters. And then you've got textures, you've got borders, everything. And it really is very, very good. I know another fellow, Scott, over there, Kenny Martin, he uses his iPhone an awful lot for a lot of stuff. And he's got it down to about two or three combinations that he likes in Hipstamatic. So that was where I started. And on one of the days out, we went up the white roads, and along these white roads here, we came across this sort of scene, and there was just, I mean, these roads are potholes. Anybody's traveled them in Italy, potholes, everything. Heaven knows what our car was like underneath whenever we left it back. But anyway, I was saw this tray and all piled out, and all the boys were taking it, set up their tripods and their big cameras, and I started playing around with the iPhone. And so that was one of the first pictures I took. This is another one closer up. And on the way home, one of my more skeptical friends who was sitting with me playing says, "What on earth can you do with that? I mean, you can't even enlarge it up or anything else." And I says, "Well, you can, but I'll show you what you can do with it." So I started using a few apps, and eventually I turned it into that. And that wee picture actually, for my skeptical friend, has earned me over £3,500 to date. It's sold, it was in the Royal Ulster Academy, but like the RA or the Scottish, I'm not sure what they call it, Scottish Academy, for artists. Anyway, that was in, sold 10, in fact, sold 14 of that. It was on a book cover. I've sold prints of it as well. And it's done me quite well from various sources. So now, don't think that's a common thing. That's the first one I've ever sold or got that amount of money for. I've never got anywhere near that again. So don't build your hopes up, folks. And there it is at the Royal Ulster Academy with all the red dots on it. Like I said, it did very well that year. Now, this that was 2010, 2011, and 2012. I submitted this panel of images for an iPhone fellowship. I do believe it's the first in the world. I've been told that, and I don't think anywhere else in any organization has had a fellowship iPhone. And that was with the BIPP. Now, I was told I was on judging panel for the RPS, and I was quietly told by senior person there. I'm not going to mention names, but he says, "Gerry, congratulations on your panel, your fellowship panel. Really, really good for you. I wouldn't bother submitting it to the RPS because it will get nowhere." And it's just a different sort of thing. Yeah, BIPP was looking for a more artistic sort of approach to it, and the RPS tend to be more tighter subject matter and everything else. And for the RPS, I would agree, wouldn't have done it. It's all over the place for them. But at that time, you were able to put 25 images in, unmounted. That was the first time they tried it. And those were my 25 images that went in. There's a story behind every one of those pictures, but we don't have time for it tonight. But it's just to let you see what we did there. Now, I have a bit of a reputation among my mates for stalking women in the street. But it's all in the name of art, I can tell you that. This is in Bilbao, and I quite like umbrellas. And I saw those three women walk along the street, so I went along and got close as you know, could and everything else, and took two or three shots. And I quite like that one, but it's not a finished photograph, and it wasn't what I had in mind. This is what I ended up doing with it. Turned it into sort of like a painterly sort of look about it. You can still see the women, the umbrellas, the colors have been enhanced, but I've used different apps there to get rid of an awful lot of the um, stuff that was all around. If I go back one, see there, all that junk and everything else, I've got rid of it all and brought it more to a painterly look. Now, I experimented a lot with painterly stuff. It's like a lot of things when you first start these things, and there's so many apps, you have to try them and see what they're doing. Now, my photography friends generally like this style. My arty friends, and I mean real artists who actually paint and draw and who know what they're doing, they're not so keen on it at all. They turn around and say, "Well, yeah, well that's we can do that, but we can't do what you do with your black and whites, you know." So, you know, can't please everybody. This is another umbrella one. This again is still in Bilbao, and I changed this one, literally sheltering from the rain. And I decided to make it a almost an abstract black and white, bit of movement in it. And I used the pencil lines to strengthen around the umbrella a wee bit as well. Um, and this is one here was in Belfast city centre. Again, it was raining, not heavy, but raining. But I like the idea of the people. Now, people thought I was photographing the city hall in Belfast there. But what I was actually photographing, I was waiting for people to come along. And if I saw them, umbrellas, colors they were wearing, and different things, that one I really, really like myself. I mean, somebody said it's a bit like a Monet or something like that. Well, very nice if it is, but I just really, really like that picture. You know, this one here. Now, I wasn't stalking this woman. What happened was that my this is in Paris. My wife had gone into a clothes shop to look around, and I stayed outside. And this woman I saw walking towards me, and then when she walked past me, I quickly grabbed a couple of shots of her, and then using a simple app, just turned that into a watercolor. Now, normally I don't like doing one app because you can see what it does and everything else, and everybody knows what it does. I like to combine apps, normally two and three and four apps, might layer back the original photograph again. So it's sort of like reality, but not reality. So as I progress, that's the way I headed. This one here again is that same day in Belfast. I was taking this one here, and this one was quite a good wee picture on its own, but there was another app. I thought I'd try it and see if it would work. And it works okay. It gives a very abstract sort of feel to it. I've sold about two or three of those prints, to people. Um, the file size is terribly small, and you really have to push it to get it up to that size. Now, this one here, we went away to Cuba, one year, and what happened was, arrived there, got up the next morning, going to take photographs, got the phone out, and the phone, the camera just didn't work. Nothing worked on them. Couldn't figure out what it was. Went through all as many settings as I could find. Couldn't figure where the problem was. So I ended up taking pictures on my Fuji I had with me, and but most of the pictures that I took on the Fuji were imported into the phone, and then I started working on them there. But I like the wee patterns here, and I thought this could work in something, and that's what I did with it. Used a couple of different apps, and just to try and bring out the colors, add extra colors into it. It makes quite a difference, you know. It was there, but that's really what I thought I saw. That's what I was hoping I would see. Again, Cuba, flower seller coming along, wheeling his truck. Um, by the way, it's a large gin and tonic, really, you know. I'm wheeling along here, but as you can see behind there, there's so much mess. The man in the striped shirt, you know, catch your eyes. The guy himself's in the dark a bit. So I thought, right, well, I'll work on this one here a wee bit. And again, using the painterly apps, this is what I turned it into. Able to get his face lightened up, kept the flowers short, but all that color in the background worked quite well. And you're not being distracted because all you're going to see is the guy himself. Now, this one here, we were in earlier last year. We went to Marrakesh, and a fabulous place. Totally recommend it to anybody who wants to go. Um, it's a photographer's delight. So if anybody's already been there, you'll know what I'm talking about. But my wife and I have been out for a walk, and if anybody knows what this place is like, getting across a road is quite difficult sometimes. So my wife wanted to find a safer crossing spot, so we were walking along. But I saw this old guy, and seen him way back, and he was walking along. When I got to that gate, I thought, oh, here, there's a possibility get him in the middle of that. Now, as he was walking along, in between there, the cars and lorries and buses were flying past. So just in a quick break, I managed to grab him. I would have put him more central, but in the end, I quite like the way it is because then I feel the archway with the light leads down to him better. So you know, it worked for me. So I took that shot, but again, there's a lot of stuff there. You know, it's a nice enough photograph. So that's what I ended up doing with it, turning it into sort of like a watercolor. I got rid of the the car and the archway there. Got rid of some of the things on the wall a wee bit, just so it didn't distract, and really did that. But kept him sharper. He's almost normal, and that's the sort of feeling I wanted about it. This again is Marrakesh. We were walking back to our apartment, or sorry, our Riyadh, and as we were walking back, I saw this wee fellow across the road, just standing there, nobody around him, nobody, all totally on his own. My wife was really worried about him, thinking he's going to get knocked down. But I figure most of the kids there are very streetwise, so I felt he was okay. But I thought there's a picture there, and that was what I took, and that's what didn't do a lot to it. Just changed the color slightly, left him there, a bit of a net round it and everything else. But I liked all the elements that are in there, the bike and the red gas canister and him in the middle. It just worked for me. This one again is Marrakesh. These guys were sitting chewing the fat. Um, and I took the photograph and then I really worked on it. This went through about five or six different apps, and I've almost, you know, it's blocky. which is what I wanted. I don't really want to see the personalities. What I really want to do there is sort of just get a feel for it and the colors and the feeling of the three people standing there. And that's the thing. Actually, I think this was a photograph taken a while ago. I think this was actually when we went to what's it called? The blue village Schiffenaf or whatever you call it. Forgotten the name of it. It's about couple of hours drive out up into the hills. Anyway, there for 2 days. But I think I took him, and I'd always wondered what to do with them. And eventually, I played around with it and did a reflection and did the sun and everything else into it. And that's just really me just trying out different apps. This is one just recently. It's down not far from where I live, well, about maybe 15 miles away, Strangford Lough. And as we're coming back home, I'd always seen this scene, and it never was right, but the light was right this day. And what I did was I stopped, took a series of photographs. I haven't got the original here, unfortunately, on it, but I decided to turn it into a watercolor effect, and that's really what I came up with there. I quite like that one again too. Very simple wee image. This one's an older one, taken a few years ago in Spain. Saw the people sitting on the beach, their bikes parked up, and there were only two around for a long, for a big empty beach at that time. So I took that, and again using different painterly effects, brought that one down to very simple look. Now here we're back to real photography, folks. Black and white, straight. That's pretty straight. I may have done a bit like you would do normally, wee bit of darkening, but this is um, way down south of Ireland. It's a loch, and I can't remember the name of it at all. Um, but my wife and I were out for a drive, and we just came over this hill, and I saw this scene. Photo, photo, photo. And my wife was saying, "Well, look, pull in somewhere safe." And there was a wee parking area. Pulled in, got out, and took quite a number of photographs of it. But I just loved that wee bit of light in the water. Without that bit of light on the water, it wouldn't work. It just needed that to lift it. And the light was kind of fleeting, so it was in and out a bit. But eventually, I did get that shot. And here we are, another black and white. This is the Vasco da Gama Bridge just outside Lisbon. Again, another trip away with the boys. And we're all there taking photographs. Um, I know another good friend of mine who's there, Hugh Rooney, he's done a fabulous one of that. Long exposure, so the water's all, there's no a milky type of look about it, flat. And Joe Muskelly was there. He did a super one of it as well. And so I just wandered around with the iPhone and taking various pictures. And I quite like it too as well. Not as good as theirs, I will say that, but there you are. This one here, we were in, dear, where were we? We're on holiday anyway, my wife and myself, forgotten again. And we're walking along, and there's this hotel out the, see, where is it? No, come to me later on, probably. And we're walking, went for a walk, and we came to this big hotel, and this is down near the water area. And I just loved the shadows there. And it was pure luck that the guy who had been sitting down got up and walked away. And it just gave me that wee figure. And the light, is leading you right to him along that edge. So you're seeing right to him, but you've got all that beautiful, strong shadows. This is back home. This is the Titanic building. Whenever you get to travel again, if you haven't been over here, or if you're thinking of coming over, we've got landscapes almost as good as Scotland, you know. Um, but if you come over here, make a point of visiting the Titanic Centre. Gives the history of Belfast and also about the Titanic. I've been round it 4 times and I still haven't got all of it in yet. But but even architecturally, it's a super building. In the front of the building, there's big steel plates with the name Titanic written across it, and cut out of it. And this is shooting through um, probably the T, part of the T, and just capturing in the abstract of the building itself. Um, Now, this one here is back to Lisbon again. This is after a night out in the town, and I'm not really crawling on my hands and knees back to the pub. Um, it just looks that way. Um, so what happened was this is the tram lines. Anybody been to that will know it. And this is where our hotel's just on the right hand side. Um, but the number 38 tram, it comes along here all the time. And so when taking photographs, boys were doing ones as well. But literally, I had the phone on the ground and took that one there. This one is in Amsterdam, and a lot of guys are interested in architecture and getting good architectural shots. I mean, I'm interested in everything. I take photographs of everything, and then think about what I want to do. I mean, don't have, I'm not single minded in that I'm doing this, doing that. But some of the guys were working on panels, for submissions and things like that. So really had um, trying to get the architecture. And this, if anybody knows Amsterdam, this is just over the river, or and to the left, the arts. I think it's the Arts Centre or something around there. I can't remember. But anyway, I think on that tall building, by the way, I think go around the other side of it. It's the one that has the swing on the roof, and you sit on it, and it swings you right the way out over. So you're literally going right the way over thin air and then back again. You know, it's not dangerous at all. We didn't try it, mind you, but and this guy, you might know him, Joe Cornish. Joe was over a couple of pictures coming up, and we did a workshop with Joe, and we went up to Donegal, John Muskelly, Hugh Rooney, myself, with Joe, and give him a full day photography, and we're having a meal uh, in the hotel. I said, Joe, I'll do a quick portrait of you. So I just got him to sit um, against the plain wall, just natural light coming into the side, and that's basically it. Joe reckoned it was one of the best portraits he's had done in a very long time. And here's me at Donegal. That was put up on Facebook recently and saying just to prove that Gerry has a tripod and he knows how to work it. But I'll tell you, that day it was blowing a gale. Now, just I'm quite safe where I am, but if you look over the edge, there's a big gully goes down there, and the waves are crashing in there. And you don't go too close to that. I stayed well back, but probably 2 years previously, a guy from one of the local camera clubs got too close, slipped, and fell into that gully, and they couldn't get him out. He died. They couldn't get him out, so it's quite dangerous there, and especially when the wind's going like that there. So what I was trying to do was get pictures of Fanad Lighthouse, which is the most northerly part in Ireland, Donegal. Uh, well photographed scene. It's hard to get. Now the light was on, but see, trying to capture the light, even my phone was going shaking like that because the wind was so strong. And if you stood holding it, you're being blown backwards and forwards. But this is what I ended up with. I had to use one that had my name on it there, but I went further back, and you can see what I mean about that gully down there. That is quite a dangerous spot. Um, Now the lighthouse you saying about I got um, the light brilliantly. Well, sort of, there's a wee app where you can put these things in. So it's not quite right, but there is an app for doing that. So and this is when we were with Joe again. We are on this beach, and Joe had his what was it? Um, he got his sort of like small plate camera. I forget what it was now. He had John Muskelly had his on a tripod, and Hugh Rooney had his, and we're all taking different shots. And I just wandered around with the iPhone. I loved the pattern in the foreground there, and it really sort of captured the mood of the day, which is, like I say, strong winds. Now we're back into Berlin now, and where we are here is if anybody knows Berlin, that's the big telephone tower, I think, isn't it? And the building beside it. Now, the building beside it there looks as if that's shooting up. It's not. It's actually the building beside it. It's like a roof, but the angle I got it at, it just tends to almost look as if that's a pinnacle going up that way, which is not. Um, but we did a fair number of pictures, all doing architectures, different things. Here we are in the Reichstag or Bundestag up in the top, and trying to get pictures. I have this in color, obviously, and I did it in black and white. I like the strong diagonals and everything else. Um, but I decided to put the flag back into color again, and so that was why. But it's a very strong. It's a super building. Some ways it's almost quite difficult to photograph inside. There's so much to it. We're away back out from. I'm taking you all over the continent. You're not having any holidays this year, so I'm taking you there this tonight. So you can tell everybody you've been everywhere. This is actually Rotterdam, and anybody's been there. The cube houses, well worth going. They're bright yellow and make super pictures. And I mean, it's been photographed to death. This sort of angle's been done so many times, but it's still very good. It's well worth going to have a look at. Um, but that was again just on the iPhone. Basically, I think I was probably lying down. I'm not sure, but taking the photograph. This is one. Um, Now this was in we were actually in where were we? Went to Italy, and we were on a trip, Bologna, and we went on a wee tourist tram, which took us round out of the centre, and the centre is lovely, a lot of food stuff, great shops, everything else. But once you get out of there, town's a bit dead and a bit derelict. But it took us way up the hill, and there's this sort of uh, it's not a monastery. It's I think it's a hospital of some sort. And anyway, I took some photos. Didn't get out of the tram. This was taken as the tram was moving, and it slowed down. So I was going click, click, click. So I took the shot, but it was all right. A picture, it wasn't special. But then I decided to play around with it, and so I used another one, app, Small World, I think it's called, and it creates a circular image. And then I added the reflections, and I'll show you those later on as well, the apps I use for that. And then I put another app on it, which gave you the spiky bits, and then yet another app to give me the texture. So, there's about four or five, six apps involved in that. Now, back to Titanic again. This is an earlier one. This is shot on the Hipstamatic thing. And what you see there in the front are the old Harland and Wolff drawing offices. That's where the plans for the Titanic were actually drawn up. And what you've got behind that is the new Titanic building. So what you've that the whenever that the old drawing offices, they were derelict, and I've been in it a couple of times, have pictures of it and things like that. But it's now been turned into quite a lovely hotel, really really nice, and I hope it all gets opened up again soon. I've been in it a couple of times. In fact, I think I took anybody know Dave Wall when he was over for a talk. I took him into the place as well, and quite fascinated with it all. Again, another one, Titanic building. And I was lucky here. We've got the Harland and Wolff cranes, sort of iconic in Belfast, these two yellow cranes. And so I've got one there. I've got the moon. And that's pretty well a straight shot. There's nothing been done with that. You know, shame on me. Imagine doing that, not doing anything with it. Right, we're away off again on our travels. So we're away now to northern Spain in the we stayed in a wee village or town called Llanes, which Asturias region. And so you're talking from Bilbao, San Sebastian, and then heading west along the coast. And it's a lovely wee town, but very, very no real English, and even the menus are not in English either. And they have their own Basque tongue, which is difficult as well. And so many's a time we're trying to understand the menu. And one night we went in and we're asking, and I thought, well, I'll try this one. And my wife, she spoke better Spanish than I did, and she was trying in Spanish. Sorry, what is this? And the guy was saying, "Is in a pan," sort of in Spanish, his Spanish, in a pan. And it comes to me. Oh, my wife said, "I don't know what I'm ordering, but okay, go ahead." So basically, meals came out, and then my meal came out, and then hers came out, which is like a skillet almost, and deep one. And anyway, we looked inside it, and it was like what I would term an Ulster fry, but you would term a Scottish fry maybe. It had got sausages and bacon and some form of beans, a couple of eggs, everything that she would not normally eat. So I had to help her a wee bit, especially some of the sausages are quite spicy. But so if you're going there, get a good phrase book, folks. Anyway, walking around the town, this is one of the buildings I saw, a derelict building, and I just loved all that texture and everything else. Um, and this is another one in the same town. It's cinemas closed down, but as I walked along, it was a wet night, just drizzly. And as I walked along, we walked past this, and then I said to my wife, "No, hang on, whoa, there's a picture here." So I walked back again and took a series of pictures of this cinema. And basically, very little done with it except I've enhanced the colors to bring it up to what I really wanted. I wanted that red to come through, and it's enhanced some of the other colors which worked well. That again got into the Royal Ulster Academy this year. No, year before last. Was that 2 years ago? I think it was 2 years ago. I've been very lucky with the Royal Ulster Academy. I was the first photographer ever to get accepted in when they started accepting photography. And apart from about 2 or 3 years, I've managed to get in every year. And they're not choosing these things. Oh, that's a photograph, let it in. You're up against painting, sculpture, um, watercolors, whatever it is. It's artists across the wide spectrum, and they only have a limited space. So there may be, um, say 1,000 artists submit 2 or 3 works, 2 works, but only about um, at most 10% of the works actually get in. So it's a very, very little get in. Fabulous works rejected, but it's just the way it goes. You're either lucky or you're not. So I've been lucky. Well, actually, this one was in the RUA this year. Um, this one here was in Spain. Um, we were down there. If anybody knows Tarifa, way down the southern end of Spain, it's past Gibraltar, and you come around, you go down the south. It's very windy, and a lot of windsurfing goes on down there. And we saw all these kites out, so we drove down to the beach, and I started taking the phone out. I used an app called Slow Shutter because I didn't want it to be exactly, you know, pin sharp. I wanted a wee bit of movement. And I did. I believe you me, I took an awful lot of pictures that day trying to get this the way I felt it would be because I can't keep looking at it and taking. You're taking, and you're holding the camera, phone, camera, whatever you want. You're holding it, but you're moving it maybe a wee tiny bit, or the wind is moving it for you, and then you're changing on it the duration of the slow shutter. So it could be half a second, 1 second, 2 seconds would be too much for that, be too much blur. But you can use 2 seconds for blur on a different style of picture. Anyway, apart from that, what I did then when I got back was I am really just enhanced the colors on that. Just sort of brought them down to basics to get the brightness in it and everything else. Again, quite a nice one I like too. This is way back again. This is one of the painterly ones, and this was of I was out one day at our local folk museum, autumn, and I saw all these wonderful colours all lying on the ground of the fallen leaves. So I took that picture, and then I used two or three apps there again to give me that painterly feel about it. It's probably the original was brought back into it in a small percentage way. Venice, you're getting everywhere. You really are tonight. I'm telling you. Um, Grand Canal. This is what I would term it's a small panorama. You couldn't get it all in one go. So I was using iPhone 10 at the time. I have now got an iPhone 12, which has got a wide angle lens. So what we're doing here is I just did a wee scan and got that. Now you don't see it, although I think on this particular one, if you look down at the base of the picture on the right, there's a wee mark on the water. There was a barge there, and I've taken it out, but I think this is the reject. Well, not the finished one anyway, but I'd taken it out because this barge was coming into the picture. But it wasn't what I wanted to finish with that one there. That's what I did with it. Played around with it a bit, whether you like it, whether you don't, but it just gives an impression of Venice. You know, now you'll all have heard of the Dark Ages, Game of Thrones fans in particular. This is what in there. It was only a short clip. The King's Road, where Arya was escaping on the back of thing, and they used this scene. And these trees are fabulous. They really are. Great place to go. It's been photographed to death. Um, but This is one day I was out with Dave Wall. We, like I say, we had him over, and he really wanted to see this place. It was a wet, miserable day, and I hadn't brought my big coat either. I was totally soaked, and but you can't take this one on the iPhone. You cannot get the compression that you need um, for to bring all these trees together. iPhone's too spaced apart, so you really need a telephoto to bring that all together. And yes, the leaves are on the ground, but a few more have been added just to cover up a bit of the road and everything else. There is one person away at the top end in the middle. He's been distorted enough. He was another photographer. Don't know who he was, but he was up at the top end. I just left him in there for a wee bit of human interest. But that one again worked on quite a wee bit. Because actually, believe it or not, taking that picture is miserable, wet, and everything else. It's not pin sharp, but I don't mind it because the painterly look gets rid of that. Now, here is a pin sharp image. I've taken it another day. And this one here, again, dark hedges shooting up, bringing in the canopy of these trees coming. They're called hedges, but they're big trees, you know. And it was a road that led down to a big house, which is would be behind me at this point. It's now a golf club. Um, but this one here was taken, and I really like the black and white. And this one actually won for me the best of nation um, in the World Photographic Cup for the UK entry, GB entry. So it won that, and I got an invite down to Bray for the presentations, and they gave me a great big print like this, you know, big size of it for a Chromolux print. So and it looks fabulous in Chromolux, really does. Um, and here's a version of it where I turned it into an abstract sort of look about it. And you know, you say I don't like that or do like that or whatever, but it's me, and you know, bored watching TV, so I sit there playing on the phone, and I try different apps to see what they'll do with different pictures. And again, although I quite like that abstract quality to it as well. This is trees again, but again there was another one, another wee app called Torn. I think it's Torn. It's called, or Edges, whereby you can tear out parts of your image so it becomes part of the real image underneath. It's not quite the real image underneath, but the bough of the tree, trunk of the tree going up, the rest of the image is quite blurred out. And again, trees. Um, this I'm not sure where this was taken. Could have been in Italy, somewhere or other. It looks like that sort of image. I'd have to go and find it again. But again, using their various apps gives a sort of painterly look to it. Now this one here is in not far, about a couple of miles up the road on the way to Belfast, and it's a well-known tree. It's called Rihanna's tree because it sits in a field of barley. There's no water around it, by the way, at all. It sits in a field of barley, and what happened was a few years back, Rihanna came over here, and they were doing a video, and they saw this field of barley, and they said to the farmer, "Can we take photographs in the field?" He said, "Yeah, but just don't trample the barley." So they were being reasonably careful. But what happened was, and unfortunately I wasn't there that day, Rihanna was prancing around doing her video, and then she decided to take her top off. Now that would have made a better photograph than that tree, I reckon, but I wasn't there. So and ever since then it's had the name of Rihanna's tree. But anyway, the basic picture is of the tree. It has now lost the left hand branch, so it's slowly coming down. Farmer told me years ago when it eventually gets so bad, he says he'll just have to plow it up, and that's it. This is about 200 yards from my house, Ballyholme Bay. Um, we literally, if I walk out this my front door here, and I walk down there 200 yards, I'm on the beach, and then there's a nice walk along the beach there, and some days you get the weather coming like this, heavy clouds, and they're coming in over the groins, and the weather coming in over the groins there, and everything else. And this is another one of Ballyholme Beach. There's a river comes down as well, and I had the camera right the way down, just almost touching the water, getting the sunset. And this one here is one picture. Would be impossible normally to get, but there's this river running down is normally fills that hole underneath the bridge, but the water level had been quite low, and I was out taking pictures of the sunset, and then I looked back and I saw, oh, hang on, there's a bit of earth there. So I walked in underneath the bridge, got over to the other side, jumped over to the other side, and took that shot. So, and that's County Antrim you see there in the, to straight ahead in the background. And again, here these the waves coming in. I just like the patterns in this here. I think it works particularly well. And again, windsurfing at Ballyholme Beach with the rainbows and everything else. That was great taking those photographs. And then as I was walking back, the heavens opened. I was drenched, totally drenched. And again, looking over there, far side, County Antrim. And on a good day, if we move round to the right, on a good day, we can see Mulligan and we can see Scotland very easy. But it has to be a good clear day. You're going to see this one later on. It's one I'm going to work on the phone. But this is in Donegal, down the coast for me, about 4 miles down the coast. And I saw these girls on their horses, their ponies, um, giving a bit of exercise on the beach. And I said to my wife, there's a photograph here. So I went down. I took a lot of photographs, but eventually I got the girl where I wanted her, just right in the middle. But you'll see what I'm doing with this later on. This one here, we're in Bordeaux. It's the Dunes du Pilat, and we climbed up these dunes. If anybody's ever been there, soft sand, but there are steps to get up as well. But it's still a lot of soft sand. You can end up with sore legs quite easily. Down to Dublin now. This is the Halfpenny Bridge. Um, Pretty well straight that one there, with the sun coming down. Here's your panorama of the Giant's Causeway. The light just hitting it nice and that particular on the stones. And it works. That one works quite well. At Belfast Street Art, I'm using one of the apps again, Van Morrison. Series of artists and musicians on this particular area, and I just like the yellows and the road markings and everything else. This wee one was taken in. I don't think I've too long to go. Are we okay for time wise? You're all right, yeah. I haven't too much further to go on this here. Um, so what happened here was that we were in at the last PTO photo training overseas in Mexico. Now, normally I've been a speaker at it for a few times or done something, but this time I was just a delegate, and I was able to enter my pictures into the competition. All the photographers did, and these birds, I think they're called crangles, like a crow, you know. But anyway, they're flying around all the lunchtime tables, and I went and took the photographs here, and of this particular one, and as it sat on the edge, and I put it into the phone. I was taking on I had actually a wee small camera with a very good zoom on it, took it that, but I put it into the phone, did a bit of work on it, sepia toned it, put a border around it and everything else. And I entered that into the competition as well. And what happened with that one there was that um, it won the competition, and the prize was a P800 printer for Epson P800, £1,200 worth of printer. So it's sitting over there behind me now. You can't see it because all you see is the clouds. But now this one here is back to Cuba again. Saw this guy, a road sweeper, asked to take his photograph. And I know I did it wrong. Should have moved him. Light was all wrong. Everything right across. But always loved the face. So I decided to work on him. And I worked on him on the phone. And I got him to that. But there's still light across the face, which is distracting. So I got him to that in the end. And that took an awful lot of work to get him looking like that. Um, and again, this woman here, this was in Cuba. Was this Cuba? Yeah. Yeah, I think it was. Yeah, it was Cuba. We were looking at something. She was standing there. She held out her hand for something. I said, "Oh yes, okay." So I gave her some money and asked her to take her photograph, and took that and turned that into that. And this one here actually was this is our bus driver who took us from. We were in Benito area, and he took us to. Oh, sorry, no, I'm getting mixed up where I am. This one here was in Marrakesh again. That's what it was, and he was taking us to these falls, and up a Berber village, and we had to climb a flaming mountain to see these falls. Quite honestly, I've seen better waterfalls, in the end of our garden, but it needed a lot more water in them. But anyway, we climbed and came back down. I asked to take this photograph, and so I did that, turned it into that. And that's just a random shot of somebody on the market in Marrakesh just standing. As I passed by, I took a quick shot. And this was a local guy. I was going to use this on a panel of images, which you'll see coming up, but it isn't as sharp as I'd like. Just slightly up. Hello? Yeah? Somebody asking something there?
No, I think he's sneezing. You're all right.
Okay. So anyway, took the pictures, but they gave him copies, but I wasn't happy with the final image. And this is a guy in Germany begging. I love the sign that he had. He's help a punk to get drunk. So he's looking for a few bob. Talk to him for a while. And this one here again, Bologna, we'll have our meal, and this old guy was standing there selling these religious cards things. And when we had finished our lunch, he was still there. So I asked, could take his photograph. I put a few bob in his wee cup there. But that's how it ended up. That was a tricky one to do, because if you look at the sky behind him, burnt out. I knew there were problems and there's people, but I couldn't really move him anywhere. So that took an awful lot of effort to get that to that state. And this is another guy I'm talking to in Germany. One of my mates took it, and great face. And I'm over asking him if he had mind taking my photograph. I always ask generally. I don't, and if they're begging, I'll give them something. But I always ask if I can take their photograph. I don't like invading people's privacy. That's the photograph I took of him, and that's how it ended up. These are all done on the iPhone, by the way. This was back in Mexico again. Um, Bikers came to our hotel, and I went down, took a series of pictures of them. There's only two that I really liked. He was one of them. And that was the panel. That was the second fellowship panel from the BIPP, and you can see all the pictures there. Um, Now, I've done quite well with this panel, but I had problems with the being digital as well. Nowadays, they're doing it. And whenever you look at some of the digital files, they don't look as good as they do in the prints. So I'm having to wait for the RPS to start doing prints again. There near the end, this is how my phone looks. This is, you'll see up there, cameras, retouch, retouch 2, photography, grunge and arty apps, light effects, abstract, and then we go on to the other ones after that again. So that's really how I have. And in each of those, there's probably about another 2, 3, or 4 windows. Um, there's the, as you see down there, there's actually 4 windows of cameras. I don't use them all. A lot of these have been used for demonstration purposes. Every so often to go back to something and everything else. Hipstamatic, you see up at the top there. Ogle is a variation of hipstamatic. Slow shutter is one I use a lot as well. But there's so many other good ones there as well. Retouching, you've got different ones here. Um, I use some of these. I use Photoshop and Reflect. You'll see Photo Toaster, things like that. RD apps. These are all ones that you would use for creating, um, your artifacts. Some just do it automatically. Some you have to actually paint yourselves. Some are just too strong, so you have to combine them back with the original. Grunge ones, this is giving you distressed images. Um, and a lot of the different ones here, rainy days, vintage scene, they're all ones that I would use. Snapseed is the one I'm going to show you on the phone afterwards. And the other one I always like is Retouch. I use Darkroom, I use Lightroom. I don't use Lightroom on the computer, by the way, folks. I just don't do it. I've never got into it, but I'm not using the computer that much these days anyway. Image Blender I use for bringing 2 or 3 pictures together. So there you are, folks. That's the first wee bit done. If anybody ever wants to contact me or do anything, they can do that. I'll stop sharing this screen now. And all right.
Does anybody have any questions for Gerry just now? Wow, that's what I was doing. I've got a little question. I take photographs on my phone, and it persistently tells me that I've got a shake, and that I need to. It tells me it needs to sharpen my images, which I find slightly rude.
It
Are
says
you
it's
are you just holding it, or do you always do it on a tripod, or have you
oh
got a
no,
wee
I'm
stick?
always holding it, always.
I think it's me. I
Um,
must have a terrible
and,
shake.
in fact, I was out today testing an app, which I may be able to show you. It's one that is let's see. I hadn't tried it for ages. One called Hydra, Hydra. Now, what it does is it takes a series of pictures, um, and it's giving me in their high resolution, it's giving me a 32 megabyte file. In their low resolution or lower 24 megabyte file. So I was just looking at it, and I was letting all my mates know here. And what I said to them was that um, been testing out an app which gives higher res file. First image is a 24 megapixel and gives a print of 32 by 24-inch at 180 DPI.
Wow.
Now I'm using 180 DPI because um, an Epson printer, you can print perfectly all right with a 180 DPI. They say 180 or 360. I was always told you don't need to go to the 360. Your printer changes it anyway. So 180 is what I use. And the second one, there's a 32 megabyte file and prints at 36 by 28 inches at 180 DPI. Now that's without any enlargement or anything. That's as it comes out. And what I'll do is I'll show you these here whenever
Hmm?
I come onto this phone. I'll show you these before I go on to anything else. I'll give you
Fabulous.
an idea of what I've done. So I don't know why um, you're
I don't know.
so blurry.
I think I've got the shakes, which is a bit of a technical
Uh,
hitch, but hey, well,
I,
such is life.
I'd lay off the whiskey if I were you. You
I
know.
think, yeah, that might be the issue.
More wine.
More wine, that's what it
More
is. I
wine,
need to
yeah.
move through it.
Any bit
Anybody?
more.
What do you use? What kind of camera or
With me,
phone?
it's a wee Android. It's a Huawei.
Ah, well, what do you expect? I'm sorry, I'm only
Right,
joking.
thank
I'm only
you.
joking.
Thank you. No, you're
Um,
allowed.
Gerry,
You're
I
allowed.
have a question,
Hang on.
Gerry.
yes.
A
David's
quick
got a
one.
question. Of course, you can, darling.
No, great presentation and tremendous imagery you've got there. My question is really in the subject of print. When do you start to lose the resolution on your printing? I mean, how large can you get a print before you start to pixelate the whole thing, given the size of the sensor on the iPhone?
Well, I can do A2s without any big problem. Now, I
Really?
print, yes, yeah. Now, sometimes some of the files I need to upsize a wee bit, but um, generally I can print okay without a problem. There's apps in here. I've tested 3 or 4 different apps. An app in here, one called Big Photo, one called iResize. I tested those. I tested Photoshop, and I tested an older version of On One Resize. And whenever I looked at all the file sizes, the On One Resize was the best, but not by a lot. Big Photo and iResize thing were, I think, coming pretty close second and third, and a Photoshop enlargement was probably fourth. So
Okay.
that's what I can do with it. What I'll do is when we stop for a moment or two, I'll go and get a big print and let you see what I have done with it, and
That'd
I'll
be good
give
to
you an
see.
idea. Yeah, but
And
the other thing, remember as well, the other thing, what you're printing on matters too. If you're printing on a high gloss paper, you're going to see more problems. But
hmm,
I always have used, because I was using it for my portrait stuff. I always use. I mean, that's a print of one of those things.
yep,
Hard to
yep.
see, I think, but that's not a big picture, you know. But I find that I'm printing on Innova paper, and that's 310 gram, and it's
Hmm.
got a bit of a texture to it. So your texture will also hide things
Yeah,
slightly.
yeah, yeah,
And
yeah.
if you're printing on canvas, no problem. You can go quite high. Yeah.
And the other question was, you started on an iPhone 4, and of course, lately, particularly with the 10, the 11, and 12, have made great advances on their sensors.
Mm.
What are you now using?
12. I've got a 12.
You're on the
Uh,
12. Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, yeah.
It pains me paying for these things, but then again, what are you buying big lenses and new cameras for? So
Oh, sure,
basically,
sure, but
you know,
you yourself have seen the step change in the quality of the lenses from the
oh,
4
absolutely.
right through
Yeah.
to where they are now. I mean, the 12 is pretty special.
It really is good. I actually had for the 10, I don't know if you've heard of Moment lenses, but they're lenses that you could screw into.
Oh yeah,
You
I've seen
know,
those. Yeah, yeah.
there's different types of ones, but I had a wide angle Moment lens, and I never used it that much. Yet I've always liked wide angle. And see, whenever I got this 12, so I've now got the wide angle standard and the telephoto, and the
Yeah.
telephoto is great for portraits. Um, I mean, it's 2.5 times. You've got your
Mm,
standard 2.5 times or half. The wide angle is just nice. It says 1 millimeter, which is equivalent to 14 mil. you know, on a full size camera. So it works really, really well for me.
That's great.
No, I must say I'm happy with it, and whenever we come onto this going online, I'll show you the two pictures that I took today, handheld, and it actually stacks the pictures. By the way, what happens is I'd forgotten it. I took it. Next thing it goes. So I'm trying to hold this really steady, but it worked actually. I'll show you anyway.
Well, we'll see that. Any more questions for Gerry just now? Oh.
Yes, I'd just like to ask, I've got an Android Samsung,
Yeah.
and some of them do RAW as well.
That's right. Yes.
Do you
This yes.
shoot as is on the automatic?
Yeah. Yes, the raw files. Adobe now are standard. You know, they are having the raw file, but there's various other apps that will do a raw file as well. One of the trying to think here.
When you're shooting, do you shoot on RAW or do you just shoot on the sort of the
Well, no, I mean a lot of times I'm using the
I don't know what an iPhone does.
Yeah, well, I'm just using the standard, but I will use Halide as an app that I use a lot. HALIDE, and I'm not sure. I don't know whether it's Android as well or not, but I think it is actually. I've got a funny feeling it is, but all the really good photographers that I know and heard of online, they all love this Halide app, and there's a lot of information about it and what to use. And it uses RAW, and the RAW files are very good. It actually gives you a RAW and a JPEG, you know, and you can get actually, I think, if I remember right, get a slightly. You can do a RAW file on its own, but I think they do a slightly lesser version RAW file, if you know what I mean. So in other words, if you take the RAW and the JPEG, you won't be able to do a burst with it. Yeah, what you'll do is you'll take it, and it takes maybe a couple of seconds to download that onto the phone. So, but I've seen some fabulous stuff out of the Samsung images, you know, and it's just a matter of playing around again with them.
But when you're shooting, do you just shoot with RAW or do you just shoot in ordinary?
Sorry, what?
When you're shooting, do you shoot RAW or do you just shoot?
I'll shoot both. I'll shoot both really. If I'm out and as I'm doing something in particular, I want to make sure it's good, building or landscape, I'll take a RAW and a JPEG, because the JPEG will show me how it's worked out and if it's good. And then if I need to, I've got the RAW file I can really work on. But for so long, I've been just using JPEGs, you know, for printing a lot of stuff. But then again, as you saw, if you paint them all and do things with them, you can get away with murder. Yeah.
Yeah, really interesting. Thank you.
Good. Oh, that's the A2 without any problem.
Well,
Excellent. Yeah, very clear.
Amazing.
You know,
Thanks,
so-
Gerry. Thank
But remember, that's been manipulated a wee bit. Now,
you. Sure.
here's a roughly a 20 by 16 of one I showed you of the beach.
Yep.
It's a Chromalock style,
Very shiny.
but you're getting
Yep.
an awful lot of reflection.
yeah,
No,
Sure.
you see
looks
it
lovely
now.
with the blue,
But-
doesn't it?
You've nothing to hide on that. You know what I mean?
Yep.
Like these shiny.
Here's
silver
one more.
to get.
Bigger
Oh,
again.
canvas.
The canvas.
That's
Wow.
lovely.
Wow.
That there is of the cranes. Now that was taken
It's impressive.
I
Size of that.
6. May have been the iPhone 6.
Well,
No.
And all
So
of these, Gerry, these ones you're showing us, Gerry, these are all ones that have been taken in the phone. They're not imported from cameras.
Yes,
These are,
yeah.
all
No,
of
these
prints
are all
straight to the phone.
these are all
Okay.
phone ones. Yeah.
Great.
And
Thank
I've
you.
one
Thank
last one to show you. Ah.
giving you a workout as well.
That was done. Right. Panorama.
Wow.
So
Amazing.
you can see the height of this thing, you know.
Sure. Bigger than you. Yeah.
Now where it is, it's off Ballyholme Bay,
Mhm.
and my house is just about there on that. I think, oh, there, somewhere there.
Wow.
So
We'll know
that's
where to
where.
find you now. Yeah. Uh,
So there you are. That's what
That's tremendous.
36.
Thanks for bringing those in, Gerry. Much appreciated. Thank
So
you.
as long as
Now that, by the way, sorry, that panorama. If you look at it, sorry, I just want to say, um, see the way the border,
Yep.
it's all up and down.
Mhm.
Yep.
That one is a joiner. And what used to happen was you used to take the pictures. So you would take, click, 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 then click, 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 click. And then you would put them into the app, Auto Stitch, that was the name of it.
Mhm.
And it just joined them all together beautifully. And it left
Right.
that edge, which I love, you know.
Right.
Um,
Right.
So
in
you
the old
can't,
days, the old days, I used to do that with lots of end prints and a scalpel,
yeah, well, you can do
Yeah.
that too as well. Yeah, exactly.
and you get
Yeah.
that rough edge. It's interesting.
You're seeing my actual screen there.
Well,
Yeah. With all my apps on them, is that what you're saying?
Yep.
I think so, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, what I was going to do was very quickly here. I was saying to you about these pictures that I took today. This one here. This one is a 24 megabyte file using that particular app I was using. They they it's going on.
Hydra. You said it was
Yeah,
Hydra.
Hydra, and that's one that takes all the different pictures. And this one here, same scene. That's the 32 megabyte file. Now it's not been shortened. You know, it could
Mm.
even go with shortening slightly,
Mm.
but they're giving me good big prints, you know, without a
Mm, wonderful.
problem.
Mhm.
So that's just to show you what can be done. You know, now what I was going to just out of that's the app there. If you see Hydra, can you see that
Yeah.
on the right hand side?
Yeah.
So you've seen that, okay? So going back again. Now, what I wanted to show you very as much as I can here was how I use the best app I think around for what it does, and it's like a mini Photoshop. And I'm sure a lot of you use the Snapseed.
Yeah.
If you do,
Yeah.
Yep.
you do, right? Okay. I'm sorry, I can't see you at all. Can't even see me. All I'm seeing is my screen. So that's why
Just
I'm
keep
a wee
talking
bit,
and then we'll talk
a
back to
wee
you.
bit
You're all
not
right.
sure what's
We'll
going on. But
we'll
if you
tell
stop
you.
saying, let me know.
Aye, we'll do that.
Right. What I'm saying there is like I think it was a monastery or something. And again in the northern part of Spain, we're out in the drive there.
Mm.
And I thought there was possibilities here, but I didn't actually you know, the weather was bad and everything else. So I thought, well, I'll take it anyway and I'll see what I can do. So I'll show you the way I would work through this one here. Go into tools. Now, at the bottom, by the way, there's different things. There's looks. So you can give it a different looks all the way along there, black and white and everything else. And then tools and then export whenever you finish getting what you want. So we're going to go into tools. One of the first things I do on an image like this here is I like to see how the clouds are appearing. So I will go to drama first of all. Now, drama can be a very bad filter in some ways. It can, you can see there, it's going way over the top. If you move your finger, by the way, left and right, that's what brings up. So I maybe want to get a wee bit more into the sky, but not an awful lot. I don't want to. You have to be careful. If you go too much, you start getting artifacts around the edges, and your sky, you'll see a lot of noise up there and everything else. So what you want to do is just enough to give you a wee bit of detail in that sky. Now, so whenever you finish that, you can do two things. If you go up and down, by the way, on it, your finger, then you've got filter strength, which is what we're doing. And then you've got saturation. So you can saturate it a wee bit more if you want. So that gives you that idea. Now, tick the bottom box, right-hand side there, and that saves that particular one. But I want to, the building to me is not sitting out enough. So if you go into, on the second row over on the right-hand side, there's a wee thing called selective. So if you go to that, and then what I want to do is I want to click on an area. So I put my finger, see down at the very bottom, by the way, there's a wee plus mark. And if I hit that, comes blue, and then I touch on there, and that gives me a wee thing now that I can play around with. What you have to do first for this here is, though, it takes in a very, very wide area. So using two fingers, you can bring that down to just the area you want to be affected. Now, you see a B, and that's for brightness. But if I move my finger up and down the screen, you've got contrast, saturation, and structure. So at the moment, all I'm interested in is brightness. So if I do that, and if I hit down at the very bottom of the screen, the wee eye, that takes that away. I can see what I've done, but that's only part of it done. So what I do now is I tap on the B, copy it, and then put it, paste it into another area. It's too bright all over. So bring that down to there. That's brightened that building up a bit more. I may need another one in there. So what we'll do is tap that again. Hang on. It's hitting the wrong one for me here. Paste, right. So bring that again. Use the two fingers to bring that way down just to an area. You can put your finger on it and move it into the area you want, or
Cool.
keep jumping. There we are, up into there. So again, keeping that down into there, brightness. So that's brightening that building up for me. The tower again itself, I would like that a wee bit brighter. Paste. Again, bring all that down so it's really in the tower. And if I want that a wee bit brighter again. So what happens is then that I've got all that sort of done. Hit the eye down at the bottom, and bring all this down. So as to see where we are. And now the building's starting to stand out. So take that off. Still a wee bit of darkness in part of it. So I'll bring this up again and go into the clock tower here. Paste. That's okay. So that's okay. Now, there's one thing about it here on these here. What you can do with this is that if I go to the top, you see the wee squares and a reverse arrow. I go into that. I can go down to the bottom, view edits, and I can actually go, that's the original picture. That's the drama, and that's the structure. And if I hit the wee arrow, I can go back in here. I can either work on it a bit more by using the brush, or I can play around with the what these are all doing again, using the is sort of the sort of the wee bars there, and you can scrap it also if you want to as well. So basically that's the initial bit done. So
Sorry,
we're back.
How did you get to that stage again? Just take me back a step.
Sorry, the witch. Say that again.
To be able to review what you've done.
To get to the edits, you mean?
Well, I'm sort of going through it here, and I've got the brightness things, but how do you get back to review what you've done?
Oh, well, right, okay. See the wee arrow at the very top on the left?
No,
If you click,
I haven't got to that stage. How do you get to there?
hang on, well, let me see. You see my screen here with the edits
Yeah,
on it?
yeah, you've adjusted all the brightness and everything. How do you get?
Yeah, so if I wanted to see the wee arrow to the side, if I can use anything on there, and if I do that, that gets me back to where I was, so I can still play around with
Right,
the.
I'm there. That's where I am at the moment. How do you get from that to the next screen?
All
then?
right, see the wee arrow, tick arrow at the bottom.
Uh,
There should be a wee arrow,
oh yeah,
wee tick mark.
yeah.
Tick that,
Okay.
and that gets you to the point now where you're ready to move on to the next one. And then at the very top, there's an arrow again to the left, on the left-hand side of the screen.
No, I've got open.
Should be at the very top there somewhere.
No. No, hold on.
Touch your screen, it should appear.
No. No, it says open.
Unless are you holding your phone upright or sideways?
Upright.
Upright. Well, what you should be at the moment, what you're looking at here, what you should see is the way I've got. You see the way my screen is at the moment.
Yeah.
Is your screen like that?
No, I've got open at the left-hand side and the three little dots.
Well, maybe you're back. Maybe you're back to the original one.
I must be back to the original, yeah.
That's maybe where you are now, isn't it?
But I did press the tick button, but
Is that Sue? Is that where you are now? Look at the screen now, darling. So you've got open,
yeah.
and see the two little squarey things next
That-
to it with the arrow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, yes.
That's where you go into to get the edits.
That's where you do the edits. You don't need, once you've done your edits, you come back out of those again.
She's vanished into her iPhone.
See,
It's not an iPhone.
All right, we've managed into the equivalent.
I don't have an iPhone.
well, look, I tell you what, I'll move on a wee bit more onto it here. And just to see, what I'll do is I'll try and come back to you when we come online again and show you what, a wee bit more properly. But with this picture here, I'm getting sort of feel to it that I quite like. But what I want to do is I'm going to look at a couple of things you can do with this here. There's a lot of things you can do with it now. See, I know what I'm doing with this picture. This is why I'm going to this here. See the word in the middle of those there in the second row, expand. If you go into that, bit like Photoshop can and everything else, you can expand the sky a bit if you want, like that. Or as I actually want, the foreground. Now the foreground's a bit messy, but I'm not worried about that in this particular shot because that will be covered. So I brought the sky back down a wee bit again. So that's what I want. I tick again that box. Now what I want to do is one of the things I like, we've had our drama and various things. There's so many things here you can use. You can use HDR on it, and depending on the strength, by moving left and right, use HDR. Brightness, lower that down a bit if you wanted to. Saturation, either take it down or bring it up, keep it about the same. There's different, I'm hitting like the wee upside down book here, and that gives me nature, people, fine and strong. Now, I'm not a big fan of HDR, but if it's used a little bit, the way that's going too much, that's going down a wee bit. So what we'll do there is just a wee bit of that, and I'll leave it at that. The next bit I'm going to go on to now is going to get a wee bit complicated, but not too much. Top row here, I'm going to use curves. So I'm picking out curves, and down at the bottom you have a range that you can just pick on automatically, but I'm not. Over to the left, beside the X, there's a wee round circle there. And if I do that, that brings up the red, green, and blue luminance and RGB, the whole cover the whole thing. But I'm going to go to red. So what? I'm going to, and you say, oh, that's awful. Yeah, well, it's not the way it's going to finish. So I'm ticking the box there again. So now what I want to do is I'm going into the edits again, view edits, and curves, and I'm taking the brush this time. And if I use the brush, I can change it. I can't see what the red there. So over in the left again, if I hit that wee triangle with the a circle in it, that brings up the mask for me. So what I can now do is I can go over that there, and I want to take away some of that red. Not all of it. I don't need it down there, but it doesn't matter so much down there. Take it down. So that just left me now with a wee bit of a glow in the sky. So again, take that, and that's fine where I are. Come back out of that again. Now what I want to do is back into tools. And one that I do like a lot here is vintage. So I'm going to go on vintage. And you can see the way there's a whole range of vintage filters here, which you can play around with until you get a look that you like. So just see, that's not bad actually. I quite like the tones in the sky. Again, by using the wee lines there, that brings me up brightness, saturation, style strength, and vignette strength. So the brightness, if you want a wee bit brighter, your saturation up or down, your style strength can be stronger or weaker, and excuse me, your vignette, you can bring that in a wee bit more if you want. So let's say we'll leave it there. I'm starting to see now the building, the sky, they're all starting to come together a bit better. So what I'm going to do with this one is I'm going to export this, and then you'll see another app I'm going to use. So I'm taking that out, export, save a copy. Right, close that for the moment. Now I'm going into, I have to find where I've left it, reflect. So open that, photos and albums, and there it is. There's the picture down the bottom right. So now what I'm going to do is open that, say yes, done, reflect. So water.
Ta-da.
So there's why the water, and you can do a lot of different water effects along here. And each of these is adjustable. So, but if you want not to mirror the image, you want a wee bit of movement in it, that again's fine. So now you've got that, you've got a reflection, and you've transformed that picture quite dramatically. I would still even possibly even look at a wee bit darker, the sky there a bit, but it's not too far. You can edit your waves so they can go stronger or weaker. You can put a mask onto it, which I don't use, but here's a good one. Fog. Put a bit of fog in there so that they're right across where your join is. So if I say, okay, I like that, take that out, save that, save. Okay, that's on my camera roll. And that's the new one there. So again, I can go into Snapseed and open from device and album, that one. And there we are. If I want to, I can go back into tune image, which is the basic one. Everything's on tune image. You've got brightness, contrast, saturation, ambience, which it didn't show you actually. Sometimes I like to use that early on. Highlights, if your highlights are a bit too much, you can drop them. Shadows, you can increase or decrease, though, increase, decrease. Warmth, you can take away, add more warmth or take it away. Contrast, a bit more contrast maybe. And brightness is okay. So do that. And then details. One about details here is if I come in close here, we've got structure and sharpening. Structure, bring it up a bit more, sharpening a wee tiny bit too. And so that's that. So there, now, what is, let's see, if I export that and save a copy, right. What I think we should be able to see is what I started out with, which is somewhere down here, I think. Yep. That's what we started with. Sorry, that was me. And that's what we've ended up with. You get that okay?
Wow.
Hello.
Very clear.
Yeah.
Very clear,
Yeah,
Gerry.
I found that I remember the last time you showed the reflect thing, I spent 5 minutes saying wow at my own screen, and I've just done the same thing again. How does it do that?
Hang on, I'm coming back on again on the computer here in a minute.
And do you notice, so you're looking at it on a phone, which is a relatively small thing. When you put it on your PC on the big screen, it doesn't lose anything. It doesn't become pixelated or anything like that. It's just looks like that, just bigger.
Right, we've got that up there as well.
It's awesome.
See, I'm not sure what. Yeah, I can only work this on the phone. But you're saying what? You're hearing me? Are
Yep.
you?
Yeah.
Yep.
One of I think that was the reason why I was here, and I was hearing myself double through those. That was the reason why. So that basically is giving you an idea of what you can do with these photographs, and how you can change it very dramatically into something that you really, something that you really thought, I wish the tide had been in that day, but it wasn't. So I can play with it. One of the others, this is actually working okay now. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come back out. And one of the others that I was using, and again, quite simple here, but I'll show you the way this one works. With this one here, which is the Donegal one, and like I say, a very dull day. And so what I'm going to do, hang on, if I get that out of the way there. So I'm going to open up again, Snapseed, open from the nice albums, and that one. Okay, so this one again is take that out. This one again is what's happened there? Can you hear me?
Yeah, you've got terrible reverb. The word is. Oh.
No, we have it. Go for that effect.
That okay now?
Yep.
Sorry, what had happened was that I unplugged the headphones and that created, it must have been a loop back or something.
Yeah.
Anyway, you can hear me okay now.
Yeah,
So
we can. Yep.
This one again, very dead. It's perfect photograph, but it's very, very dead. So it needs a wee bit of work done on it. So again, we'll go in here and I'm going to go to drama again. That's brought up a lot of drama. From no clouds, we're starting to get the clouds now. So I'm quite happy with that there as well. That doesn't look too bad. come in tight there, round the horse. Not too, just have to be careful you're not getting a halo, but it's generally there's nothing on to that there. And for that particular image, it's far enough away, you don't have to worry too much. Right, so click on that. One of the other things I want to do again is back into selective again. So if I go into selective again, I want to, oh wait, no, I know what I want to do first. Sorry, back out of that. Tools, curves again. And I'm going to do the same thing again. I'm going to go with the red because the particular thing I want to do on this. So that's okay. Now I'm going to go into the view edits and use the brush and bring that down and hit that.
Gerry, can I just ask you a question when you talk about brush? Are you just using your finger or are you using a stylus?
I'm using the finger, but
Okay.
having said that, I do have here a wee pen,
Right.
which I could use, but a lot of times I don't. It
Okay.
depends how
Love it.
fine it's going to go. But if you
Love
can
it.
see,
Thank
you see that wee pen? It's actually quite good. Although it's a flat edge on it, the point that works is quite small. So if you want to do what do you call it, fine work, that's well worth getting one of those off eBay or something like that. They're very good.
Yeah.
For these ones, I'm just using my finger on them. Right. So now we've got a wee bit of. I'm taking out a lot of the color. It won't matter too much, but I don't want it all everywhere. Oh, I'm putting it back in again. Sorry. So that's down, and that's taken that out. Now, what it's done is left me with a wee sort of glow round there, but you'll see what I'm going to do with that in a moment. So click that, and that's me back out. Now, what I'm going to do with that is back into the tools again, selective, and then what I'm going to do is right the way in, put one behind the rider, but bring this. Bring all this down just behind the rider, and I can brighten that a wee bit, and then I'll do another one, copy, paste, bring that down using the two fingers. I'm doing that so you can see me now, so I couldn't do it before there, but I'm just doing that pinching to get the brighter round the rider, so the rider's standing out, and then but let's see, we'll put paste this one, bring it down. Now I don't want this too bright, so see if this will work. Turning it a wee bit grey, but just tone it down a wee bit. Okay. Back right to that one.
Who needs Photoshop?
Yeah.
Right, a wee bit brighter there. So now what happened is when I look at that, the rider's now standing out quite considerable on that there. So click that again. Right. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going back into tune image here. I want to go and have a look at the ambience in it. See what that's now bringing a wee bit more cloud into it, although it won't matter when you see what I'm doing with it. Highlights, just make sure they're not too bright, and your contrast, something like that. Shadows. So we're getting close to roughly what I want to do, but it's not finished by a long way. So what I want to do now is I don't want to use the vintage filter yet. I'll use that later, but I'm going to use something else here, double exposure. So you go into down to the bottom left, by the way, if you see, all right, tools, see down way at the very bottom left, you've got double exposure. That's what I want to do first. So now what I'm going to do is add something in here. So going to go to albums, We'll try that one. Right. Now, I'm getting problems with that colouring. So, right, I'll put the sky in, but I don't like the pink colour behind it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say click, but I'm going back into the edits and view edits. And what I'm going to do with that is the curves and that, the brush, take that, a lot of that out again. Just a tiny wee bit left behind the rider there. Okay, so go back. So now there's just a wee tiny glow. Now that, what I would tend to do with that colouring is probably change that colour to match the rest of it. But I'm not going to do it now. But so what we've got there is we've got our double exposure, and that is like that. Now you can move that around to wherever you think is going to suit. We'll leave it at say that. So that very, very roughly is how you can totally change a very bland picture into something else. So if I go back and view the edits, we started off with that. Drama, curves, selective, tune image, double exposure. And then, okay, that's fine. And one last thing, we can go back into vintage. And that then brings it all a wee bit closer. Again, I can do brightness if I want, but I'm quite happy with that being dark. Saturation, it's all right. And style strength, if I want it stronger or not, quite happy like that. Vintage strength, like that. So again, we've gone from original of that, drama, curves, selective, tune image, double exposure, and finally vintage. So you've really turned that around, that picture, quite dramatically. So you know, it's one of these things that it's easy to do when you play around with that for a wee while. There's lots of tutorials online by guys who know a hell of a lot more than me. And so, you can see all these people and see what way they're doing, but also as well on what do you call Snapseed website itself, they have tutorials as well. So it's actually quite good. There's one other wee thing I wanted to say. I don't know, what time do you normally finish?
It's a difficult thing on Zoom. Actually, we finish generally speaking when the speakers stop talking. It's generally the way it goes. I wouldn't like to stop you now if you're going to show me something even more fun. I'm already astonished now.
Well, when I dry up, I'll let you know then. Okay.
Yeah, we kind of drew the line at 11 o'clock, so not much longer, just a little bit longer, or because we'll.
Right. Well, look, I'm going to show you another wee one here and using Snapseed. By the way, I'll come to another app later on. So I'm going to open another image.
And when it saves it, does it save it as a JPEG of the new image?
Sorry, export that. See if it comes out. Right. Right. Open from device, albums, Edinburgh. Right. We're going to have a bit of fun. There's a guy obviously in Mexico, and so he went into part of my panel as well and everything else. But just to show you what I was going to do with this one here, I wanted this. I don't always use the black and white in this, I will say that. I use other things for black and white, but sometimes it works okay. So if I use down there, I've got a range of things at the bottom. So you can use neutral, contrast, bright, dark, film, dark and sky, more for landscapes. But the neutral one there's not bad. And if I move my finger again up and down, brightness, contrast, not too much, a wee tiny bit. Grain, I don't want any grain, but if you wanted grain in it, that shows you what the grain's like. Sometimes, if your picture is just that wee edge is not quite sharp enough, a wee bit of grain in there will make it look sharper, you know. So, but I don't want grain in this particular one. What I sometimes then, that's okay. Sometimes I will still use drama, and drama can bring out these tones in the face. So if I'm going through these here, see, for my panel, I was trying to get the textures of the skin to come through. So at the moment, number 2 there's not bad, but filter strength 90, saturations -40. But filter strength, you can move it up or down. Just watch your highlights a bit, but some of them can be fixed easy enough. The one on the nose, it's easy fix and things like that. Just be careful. Also watch that you're not losing detail in the shadows, but they can be brought back again. So the next thing is here, like you see down at the bottom, it says portrait, near the bottom, portrait and head pose. Well, let's go to portrait. Now, what we've got here, we've got a range of things here. Nothing in here at the moment, but down the bottom, spotlight, that will give you face spotlight. See how it lightens the face? Spotlight 2, as it's giving you a different sort of look to it. Smooth, that'll smooth out the skin tones a wee bit. See? You're trying to hide a few blemishes maybe. Smooth 2, variation on that. Eyes, it's working on the eyes to give them a bit brighter. So you have a range of things there, but what I like to do with this one here is if I go to, you've got also as well, by the way, here on this one, you've got whether the skin is pale, fair, dark, and dark. So you've got, again, different ranges on that too as well. But one of the things that face spotlight is your face spotlight, you can move up and down. Now, what I did, I went into the wee, where you can work with this at the bottom, the 3 wee lines for working on this. So your face spotlight up or down. Sorry. Then you can go to skin smoothing if you want, but I don't want that skin smoothing. Or you go to eye clarity. You should see the eyes brightening there a bit. Yeah. The whites of the eyes brighten up a wee bit there. So you got brighter eyes as well. So if you say that's fine, I'm okay with that up to a point. But I'm going back to tools again. I'm going to head pose. Now, if his face is looking a bit wrong on the head pose, use your fingers, but look, move it around a wee bit.
Sneaky.
So you can get his head and looking down a wee bit as well. So that's not too bad, that, you know. So a lot of wee things you can do, you know, with this particular thing. Again, you can use selective to go into the eyes and lighten those up a wee bit. There's also other things here like retro looks. That will give you a different looks, old-fashioned looks to it. You know, sometimes they work, sometimes they don't. But you can play with them. Brightness, bring that down. Contrast, bring that down a bit. Saturation, up a bit. Style strength. Scratches. Well, there are scratches on, but I don't normally have those. I would take them off. And light leaks. So I'm going to have to go back up to brightness again. bring it up a wee bit more. So again, you can put your tones into it as well. You do have, like I say, the range of tones all down at the bottom there. So again, that's quite good. Other tools to do here. Trying to think. Well, you maybe wouldn't use it for a man, but maybe a female. But sometimes even a landscape, you can use a bit of glamour glow. So what's happening here is with different, different ones. One there, you can see the skin tone smoothing out there. But if you say I go to that one, go into here, the glow's 100, saturation, up and down, warmth, bring the warmth back into it a bit. And that will smooth out the skin tones a wee bit. I don't want them smoothed out though. The grainy film we've got noir. Again, that's given us a range of different sort of looks. But each one of these can be changed by using the wee adjustments here. Brightness, wash over it, grain again, 25 in there. You can, like I say, do so much here. And let's see, you can crop it obviously at the top there. Simple enough. Just put the crop on, free crop, original, and you've got the different sizes there. But if you've got that, if you want that down a wee bit more and bring that up a wee tiny bit, sides are on a line of third there pretty well. So, you know, you can say, yes, that's okay. Makes a wee bit off center there. So maybe what I'll do is crop, come in at the side. So you've got his eyes in a very strong position when you do something like that. So that's what you can work around with. And then what I'd do is I would go back to vintage again. I always like to use the vintage filter. And it vignettes it. I don't have to actually. If I go to tools and see down bottom right there, near the bottom, you have your vignette there. So we can do that. And there's, you can use them fingers again. And then what happens is you can use outer brightness or inner brightness. Outer brightness, bring that down a wee tiny bit. Inner brightness, bring it up a wee bit. So you can do that. And then your tools, vintage again. And you've got, again, different tones. I use different ones different times. Brighter, a wee bit brighter. Style strength, a wee bit less. Vignette strength, a wee bit less. And you also have filters onto ads. What's that one doing? Oh, that's blur on, blur off. That's what it is. I've forgotten that. Yeah. Oh, I know, actually. That's not actually affecting the face. That's affecting the outer bit. There's a blur on the vignette in that. So it's not the face, you know. I'm learning all the time here. This is all brand new to me, you know. So I've got him that far. And he's looking pretty good now. So I would probably export that. But just to show where we started again, there's our original black and white, drama, portrait, head pose, crop, crop again, vignette, and vintage. That's how it's brought us down to something that looks quite decent. So what I'm going to, I'll save a copy of that one. What I'll do next is what was one? Oh yes. Let's see. I'll open up another picture here. I'm going to open this one just to show you this here. Now, within this thing here, there's a wee thing over in the left-hand side, healing. Same as Photoshop has a healing brush and everything else. So it has healing. I find it not brilliant, but it can be used in certain times. So if I come in and I've got this here, and if I want to, almost gone. See the way it's not doing it as well as I would like. You can use that one in that, but it doesn't always work brilliantly. Pulling in too much from around it. So come out of that. What this one beside the Snapseed is Retouch, which is one that I like an awful lot. So whenever you have Retouch, we'll get the albums, and they're all over the place in here.
That healing brush was quite a
Uh,
number of our bins before I put a picture up. Because I don't particularly like them.
let's see. I'll tell you what. I'll take a different picture. Okay. So what I'm going to do here is that post in that picture is a wee bit thing, and down the bottom we've got object removal, quick repair, line removal, and a clone stamp. And there's other things as well. But if we do object removal, run down there. That's a pretty well gone without too much bother. If I want to now do again, I want to get rid of that bit. No, hasn't quite gone.
Wow.
That's got rid of it. I think you can see that it's done a pretty good job on it. You know,
That's impressive.
so you can play around with that one. That's why I like that particular one very much. You've got let's see, if we go back here, I'm not sure if it worked, but we'll try it anyway. Line removal. You don't have to be terribly accurate about this in here. There it is. It automatically found it and removed that. So, you know, it's again a very neat way to do it. Again, if we do line removal, as long as you're picking it up most of the time. Oh, a wee bit missed there. Go back, use your object removal. Let's fix that. So that's why I particularly like using that. It's very, very accurate, and it does a super job. You know, so you know, well worth getting.
The judge would definitely notice the clone stamping on the rocks there.
Sorry, what's that?
A judge would definitely notice the clone stamping on the rocks. You'd need to work on that a bit
across
more.
the rocks. Were you saying there?
Yeah, the rocks. She's noticed it on the rocks.
Oh, there's definitely.
Oh, it's the
clone
two white
stamping
blobs.
there, yeah.
Aye, the two white things at the top, isn't it?
Well, no, there's the rocks in the middle. It's definitely.
Yes, it's only the rocks there. Yeah.
You'd have to work on that a bit more because a judge would
It did.
pick up on that.
There. I mean, there I've got that's coming down from up here. You know, where it was attached to the thing we took out. That would have to. Is that what you mean?
Just all over the rocks. Well, I can't point at it on my screen here for you to notice, but there's duplication all over the rocks there where it's obviously clone stamped it from one area to another. So you'd need to work on it a bit more because I mean, you've got three things there that are the same.
Well, yeah. Well, sometimes you may find that it may not be 100%. Is that what you mean?
No, I mean, it's done a very good job, but it's done.
Oh, yes, right. Okay.
done a-
Sorry.
it's-
Problem is, I'm hearing you on this, and not on the earphone. So it's with my hearing, it's always a bit of a problem, you know. But no, I mean it generally it does a very good job, and I mean unless you know where you're looking for something,
well,
you
it's
wouldn't see it.
fine in this. It's fine in the sky for ethereal things, but when you're doing it on hard surfaces like the rocks,
Yes, yeah. No, I mean it's one I like to say. That's one app I use a fair wee bit, but other ones like to say are Darkroom, Lightroom. They're ones I would use as well. Image Blender is very good if you wanted to blend two images together. I'm only going to do this very quickly here for you. Photos. Let's say I did that one, and then say I bring photos.
need to find out which one of these.
Android.
Android.
Hang on. Do that one. You need to top there, change it is around a bit. So we've got that about there. And save. And then you can move that up and down. But what I want to do, I'm seeing where I am here with this first. I know, wrong spot. So move that up. So that's about there. Okay. Okay, save. Then I want to use the brush here, mask it, and having to go the other way around on this. Sorry. That should be taken. That should be showing up the bottom one. Yeah, you can use this here a lot to get you. It's. I don't think I've got it set to maximum here, but you can bring it all so you're getting back the foreground again. Taking out that, so you putting in your sky. Am I going the right way with this? Maybe not. Anyway, what I wanted to say is you can use that one quite well. I've got it around the bit of the wrong way on that there, but it wasn't one I would use, but I just wanted to show you that it's quite good, that one. Right.
Wow.
So, right.
That was fabulous.
9:49.
Does anybody have any questions for Gerry?
I'm going to cut off the phone here.
My head is full of information. Oh, I do that, darling. There we go. With a bit of luck, he's still there. Are you still there, Gerry? Oh,
right,
there you
are,
darling.
I'm here now. Sorry.
Wow.
Right. Oh, we're here. I'm hearing myself. Let's see.
Anybody got any questions for Gerry apart from wow?
Yeah, I got one.
All right.
Gerry, thinking aloud here. I may be talking a little rubbish here, but if I took a JPEG on my camera, the file size could be, say, anything between 2 megabytes to 5 megabytes, say. Then you import it into the phone. When it goes into the phone for processing on these apps, at what stage does the image get cut down to 320 KB or whatever it does? I mean, it comes out as a tiny file, or maybe some of these apps are actually increasing the file size. But I'm curious. I mean, I love watching your workflow, but my question is more about the workflow between the camera and the iPhone. At what stage the reduction takes place, and where in particular does the iPhone shed file to get it down to that small size? Are you there? We lost him.
No, I'm all right. I'm here now. Sorry.
Did you get the question, Gerry?
Yeah, I did hear
Did you
it.
get
Yes, yeah. I was being very respectful and quiet and listening to you, you know.
Oh, very kind of you. Very kind.
I mean, the cameras I have are, they've never really been much more than 12, 15 megapixel, you know, file sizes onto them. But I've never had a problem importing it in because I'm still getting, some apps though do decrease things because one of the apps I tried using a while back, the RD apps, the file size was ridiculously small. And they said, well, we're only doing it, it's only meant for the internet. It's not meant, or, you know, for web use. It's not meant for anything else. So it works fast. But other apps that you can use, Snapseed and things like that, they have a pretty good file size. I couldn't tell you exactly. I'm not that technical minded about it at all. But
so what I'm saying is, so on that point though, that's the point. I'm not saying it's problematic, but if you have say a 5 megabyte file on your camera and you beam it by Bluetooth or whatever into Snapseed, is it at the moment you open Snapseed, is it still working on a 5 megabyte file, or has
it's
it
still
already through
it's
the
still
importation been shrunk?
As far as I
It's
understand, it's still working on the same file size.
on the same file size.
Yeah.
Okay.
Now there, if you put in a 24 megapixel, you know, great big one, it probably won't. You know, it'll probably cut it down a bit. But I've put in some quite large file sizes, and they all seem to work. It's when you're exporting it out, it's more the problem, I think, sometimes.
No, but if you take your iPhone image, of course, these days it will make the image an HEIC file by right, and
Yeah.
you have to tell it to export stuff as a JPEG. But even if you export stuff as a JPEG, they come out much smaller than the original file from the camera, I believe.
I'm gonna have to look that one up to tell you exactly what that is.
No, I'll
Because
check it myself.
no, I can
thought,
I understand exactly what you're saying. Problem
yeah,
is I've never had a problem, and therefore I've never actually looked at that terribly.
got it, got it,
Um,
got it.
I found any file size I've imported in, I still come out, you know, where I can print it up to A3, A2, A3 plus, whatever, without
Yeah,
too much bother. I may have to
yeah.
still resize it, but I probably would have had to resize the original file in Photoshop anyway to print it up to A2, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
It just depends
No,
on
I'll look
how
into it.
big the
I'll just
file
look
size
into
is.
it. I was just wondering, anytime you dump from, say, 5 megabytes down to 300, or something's got to go. And I was just curious at what stage in the overall process that
It cuts it
compression
down.
takes place.
You lose
Yeah,
stuff.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Well,
yeah,
I think
yeah.
your raw files, I think, are, you know, probably going to help you with that as well.
No,
And like I say, I've always been this way. I've never been particularly technically minded about an awful lot of things, and I've found what works for me, and I can use it. And I know I can do big files without a problem. I can do big
yeah.
prints without a problem.
Oh,
But I
that's
have,
good enough. Yeah,
but if I'll go and have a look and see. I'll take a phone picture at maximum, port it in, and then see what file size it actually is. You know, once I've imported it into the phone, and
yeah,
then
yeah.
if I do a bit of work on it on the phone, then see what
Exactly. See
then
what it
I'll see
ends
what
up.
it exports on. What I'll do is I'll
Exactly.
do that, and I'll send over I'll let you know my conclusions on it.
Well,
Yeah.
thank you. And I'll
That'd be
pass it on
great.
to David. That'd
Thanks.
be great, actually. And the rest of us, because I'm
Appreciate
sure
that.
this is.
Thank you.
Anybody else got any other questions for Gerry? I think it's astonishing, Gerry. It's astonishing second time round, actually. I was astonished the first time round. I'm still astonished. I can see people on their phones. I was doing the same thing. I'm going, where is that reflect thing?
Well,
Yeah.
I guess the question that we should be asking, Gerry, I mean, you made the transition. You left the big camera world and made this leap in, and you've been very
Yeah.
successful, and you've got accreditation in iPhones. Where do you think the institutions are in and the higher end of photography is in its acceptance of iPhoneography? You think it'll always be regarded as second grade, or do you think it'll ever punch through to be really considered
No,
as an
no,
no,
no.
you don't even think you can overcome them?
I think there's more problems with sometimes club photographers than there is from the professional or RPS. The panel of portraits I put up, I did initially in going on the Irish one say that it was an iPhone, and they said their comment was it doesn't matter. It really doesn't matter. RPS is the same. It doesn't matter what it comes from. What they're looking at is the technical skills and abilities and whatever the level is, and it doesn't matter what it is. So you will find it's more people who say within clubs maybe who have a bit of a closed mind. That's not a real camera.
Yeah.
That can't be a real camera. But getting past that, it's a bit like the old used to be a 10x8 plate camera. Oh, these newfangled 5x4 plate cameras won't work at all. Now 2.25 square. No, gee, how you can get this picture out of that? 35mm. That's not for a real photography. Digital. That's not real photography either. So whenever it comes to it, every from time started and things, it's always been that people have the idea that that size 10.8, 10.12 is what you need, and then 5.4, 2.25 square, 35mm, now digital, and now iPhone. So there's always going to be people who don't. I remember, and I won't say exactly what he said. A few years ago, I was a funeral. I think it was actually Jim Moreland. If any of you knew Jim Moreland or heard of him anyway, brilliant black and white photographer, good friend of mine right from my very early days. And we're all sitting around a table, a bunch of some older photographers than me and old hands and everything else. And whenever I got the first fellowship of the thing, and somebody, I hadn't mentioned it, but somebody says, do you not know Gerry got a fellowship using his iPhone? Thing, more or less. That's not photography. So I'm not saying exactly what he said, but you get the gist of it. Yeah. I think even in Scottish you'd understand that one, but that was the sort of his attitude, and he was very dyed in the wool and everything, very traditional in his way. But a lot of people have that attitude. They're not open. I'm not saying I like everything, but it's like somebody said, where do you get your inspiration from? I had to do a talk on inspiration. Where do you get your inspiration from? Everywhere, not just photographers, artists, painters, sculptors, ceramic, whatever it is. I look at things and I'm busy thinking, wow, I'd love to be able to do that. I'm not talented enough to do that, but I'll try and do something myself.
But do you think, Gerry, that you think that you would be able to do what you do today had you not had the fundamental grounding in photography and the science of photography?
Yes. Whether I would be or not, but I know a lot of people online who, and strange enough, a lot of them maybe went to art college. A lot of women, in particular, are exceptionally good. They've been to art college, but then they ended up going off, raising families and everything else, and they didn't get to do it. And now they've come back and they found the iPhone brilliant. And if you want to look up a whole range of people, there's a website called the app Whisperer, the app Whisperer. Now, a woman, Joanne Carter, she runs it. It's the biggest website for mobile stuff around. But you go on there and you'll see some real talent. I mean, people who can do things with their phones. I mean, what I showed you there tonight, it's pretty traditional photography. But what they do is they turn these things, or maybe not your taste, collaging things, doing things. It's amazing what they can do. And I look at it and I'm busy going, I wish I could do that. I wish I was talented like that. I wish.
David Hope is using an iPad now, so nobody's sneering at him.
No, well, iPads, I have not used an iPad in years because my screen's just big enough for me. But a lot of people do. And the drawing on the iPad, the pen.
Well, it's good enough for David Hockney. It should be good
Yep,
for most
absolutely. He was using an old batch of iPads and doing stuff. No, I mean, there's a fabulous photo. If anybody's been to the Rijksmuseum and also the Van Gogh's Museum, rather, and up on the thing they have a moving thing of Van Gogh and various things, and there's one picture of him, and it shows you him with an iPhone in his hand or an iPad in his hand. I was using it as a profile picture at one point. But to me, that what these people would do with these things, Hockney's just one of them. There's so many talented people out there.
I wonder if Ansel Adams would have quite liked to just whisk out his iPhone and take a picture when he was halfway up Half Dome instead of lugging that huge plate camera.
Exactly. Probably would have used an iPad because it's closer to a 10.8 camera. Yeah.
It's still a bit of downside lighter than what he lugged around with him.
Oh, absolutely. My shoulders were sore carrying all my gear and everything else. That was another reason to give up with it all, But I mean, I go out with that, it's in my pocket, and I know I can produce some really nice work and everything else. Some things I can't do. Obviously, the telephoto, sometimes I could do with it, but you just make your make do with whatever you've got. And
the main advantage is you tend to have it in your pocket all the time.
Well, exactly. Whereas I wouldn't carry a camera with me all the time. But no, there you are. That's me and my wee bit of work. I hope it gives you enough to go and play around anyway.
Yeah, thank you very much.
It's been fabulous. I think you deserve a round of applause. Round of applause from Edinburgh. Come on.
Thank you very much.
There we go.
Folks.
People are fading off. I think it's time rather than enthusiasm, though. I have to say, there's
I know.
loads
Don't
of
worry,
very
I would
positive
agree.
comments. That's right.